Noah's Ark 2x2 formation. Road change now. We go racing for the first time this season. 3 hours of GT action. It's go.
This is very tight as they come down. Group of cars coming in. This has all got trouble written all over it. This is G3 cars.
Drop downhill there, head towards the Aqua Minerale. Of course. There's another one off through the gravel. As wide as possible as they drop downhill, putting that truck inside line. Yes, he did. Through he goes.
Apex Online Racing is sponsored by Elgato, who created this lovely stream deck. For more information about the stream deck, the link is in the description below.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Apex Online Racing. This is Season 9 of the GT3 series, and this is the round opener for the Tier 2 at Paul Ricard. I'm back for a second season, different name, Tim360Lunn this time, and I am joined by John. Say hello, John.
Hello everybody, it's nice to be back in the comms box again after a couple of seasons away, and I think we're going to have a pretty good bit of action ahead of us.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone watched the Tier 1 racing last night, action, I think, it's almost certainly going to happen. Hopefully we can not have quite so many incidents as last night.
Yes, I think it would be wise to try to avoid some of the carnage that we had on lap 1, so fingers crossed Tier 2 can maybe show Tier 1 a bit more caution on how to approach the early stages of the race, because it is a long race, maybe not full-on endurance, but certainly more laps than just the one, so hopefully a bit more caution will be seen today.
Yeah, I mean, they've still got a full 60 minutes to get the job done, so lap 1, I mean, it's always a bit manic on lap 1. Everyone's bunched up, there's lots and lots of stacking of cars going into corners, but hopefully we can see just a little bit of restraint. A little bit of restraint from the guys.
Yeah, that would be nice. I mean, Paul Ricard, for such a wide track, and obviously the runoffs in particular are extremely wide, which can be quite accommodating for those moments where everyone starts to bottleneck. But in a way, I think it almost ends up being detrimental, because it encourages people to send it 3-4 wide, and then when everyone arrives at the apex, everyone's on a different line, everyone's got different closing speeds, and that's when you start to see these incidents happen. Everyone starts stacking up, and then you've got more of these sort of 3-4 wide rows behind you, and then that's when we end up in a situation like we did yesterday with a huge pile up on the main straight. So it can be a blessing and a curse sometimes with the way that these tracks are designed, but hopefully they'll get through the first lap with the majority of cars unscathed by the end of it.
We can only hope. So I'm trying to have a quick look at who's back and who's new. Obviously, John is a veteran with Apex Online Racing, so he knows many of the names, he knows lots of the history. So if there's any questions, YouTube chat is where to ask, and I'm sure he'll be able to answer quite a few of the questions that I can't quite answer. Just having a little look. So qualifying about to begin for us.
Yeah, I shall certainly do my utmost to to answer any questions. And yeah, as far as sort of people returning, we've got quite a lot of people from Tier 2 last season, familiar names of drivers that I raced with myself, of the likes of Meerveld and Cowley, Fang, but we've also got sort of names that have moved around between tiers from AOR as well. So we've got people like Dennis Latz, Alex Torregrossa, they've come down from Tier 1, so I'm sure that they're going to feel like they have a point to prove in Tier 2 this season. But then we've got some big movers as well, like Benjamin King. I'm not sure if he's on the grid with us today, but he's come up from Tier 4 to get into Tier 2. So I think that he's going to be very excited about the opportunity to race on this grid. And a lot of familiar names that maybe from Tier 2 last season looking to try to improve on their results a bit, get a bit more consistency. I think Grantas Caracas could be another name to look out for. Pitchik, big point scorers in some of the races last season in Tier 2. So a lot of exciting drivers on the grid.
Yeah, I say, like you said, with names like Caracas, who showed blistering pace last season, but just had bad luck, just cursed with bad luck the whole way through, and it actually went across into the endurance season as well. He had some bad luck there. I think it was a driver didn't show up for one of the races and ended up with a massive penalty. So hopefully this is his season where he can have a bit more luck. He was showing some pretty decent pace in free practice just before this, so it'll be interesting to see who comes out on top as they're about to start their first flying laps. Who is our first man? It's going to be Connor White is going to be our first man on a flyer, so we'll jump on the helicam with him and have a look, see how he gets on.
Yeah, it's a really difficult lap to put together here sometimes, because to really ace a lap around here, you've got to be quite aggressive with those curves. You can see Connor leaving a bit on the table through turns 1 and 2, not being too aggressive with those first couple of apexes. And in the race, although turn 1 and 2 are somewhat forgiving at the apexes, the exit of turn 2 have to be really careful not to go beyond those lines and those markers right on the edge of the track, because then you will get warnings. Similar sort of location for where we're coming up to now, which I believe is turn 7. You see those just those little plaques sticking up at the side. If you go beyond those, you will pick up track warnings, and then the very long run all the way up to turn 8 feels like forever, maybe when you're in qualifying, but when you've got people stacking up behind you in the first lap and all slipstreaming down towards turn 8, you want to get to that corner as quick as possible, because they will be hunting you down.
As they definitely are going to be interesting to see cars with a decent top end have a real advantage there. I mean, you could be the best in the corners, but there's only so much you can defend on that long old back straight.
Yeah, absolutely. And turn 8 is such a difficult corner. It always kind of gets a huge slide there through what I think was turn 11. He did well to hold on to that, but just carried a bit too much entry speed there. The weight just transferring a bit quicker than he was.
Looked like he got a little bit sideways again then, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. He's struggling to keep the rear of that car in check, and then going a bit deep on the entry to turn 13. So this has been a far from ideal lap from Connor. So we'll see what he does when he comes across the line. 54.6, and Meerveld immediately going to a 53.7, and yeah, there's a few drivers that already putting in times that are a decent margin ahead of Connor's effort there, and I think that he'll be certainly searching for a lot more in that lap, because there was definitely areas that were missing and big moments that he had to sacrifice some time there. So maybe the car not quite working as on the cold tyres, which you might have to look out for in the beginning of the race as well. But maybe once that comes up to temperature, everything starts to get up to pressure, maybe that's when his car will start to feel a bit more planted for him and really be able to maximise the performance from it. So we'll see how that progresses for him. But yeah, some decent efforts already coming through so far. I think we've got Razier up into provisional pole for the time being. I'm trying to see what time he's on, 53.4, so almost 3/10 up on Masoom there, and that's a pretty good effort so far, I think.
Yeah, and you think these are first flying laps as well, so no one's had a chance to really get any meaningful heat into the tyres. I mean, obviously, a lot of these guys, they'll be running a different setup for qualifying, obviously a lot less fuel, and they might only go out for a few laps, pit, get some new tyres and jump back out there again. But it is really interesting to see the way the different cars sort of adapt to these big wheel movements there from Mirveld. I think he had a lot of opposite lock there, just on board with him, and you could really see him sawing at that wheel. Something we did notice last season was how the Bentley did take a little bit longer than some of the smaller mid-engine cars to get his tyres up to temp, but once it got there, it was a really competitive car still. Obviously, the BMW, it hasn't been out that long. It's had a recent bop change as well, so these guys may not have had that much practice in it. So again, like you're saying, just carrying that little bit too much speed in and not quite sure of the car cold. You know, you think if you're doing a practice session, you're not practicing cold tyres all the time. While you've done a few laps, your tyres are up to temp and you're just practicing consistency. So qualifying is always a bit of a tricky one for these lads, I think. And obviously in the new car at the BMW with a recent bop change as well, it's going to be a real interesting season. Hopefully, going to be stuff all over the place. And Caracas puts himself up on pole now, a 1:53.415. So
look at the margins though with the front few drivers. We've got 6 drivers in first 5 drivers are within a tenth. As I say that, Rosier goes and does a 0.2, so completely blows all of that out of the water. Goes purple in the final sector, pretty decent middle sector there, almost purple there. And one thing to note is that Terminen in that Lexus, I noticed this in the practice session ahead of qualifying. Purple in Sector 2 at the moment, in both practice and qualifying. So that car seemingly has an immense amount of pace, possibly up the back straight, which, although in terms of raw performance across the qualifying lap may not be the most helpful, in top speed to make overtakes happen and defend from people behind, that can mean he has a really good race car underneath him, and could make him one to watch out for, already starting in the top 10, and could be a bit of a mover during the race.
And like we said, it is a race of attrition, especially over a space of an hour. Just being fast on one lap doesn't do it. You need to have a car that is competitive in the right places, and like I said, the Lexus is usually pretty dominant on that back straight, isn't it? So I mean, should be pretty interesting to see how it does against other cars. I mean, the Porsche struggles a fair bit on that back straight.
Yeah, absolutely. Audi, I don't think is too fantastic at the back straight either, and I think that's where the couple of Audis we've got might lose out a bit on today's race, because I think it's got pretty decent cornering performance, but yeah, that back straight's a killer for both the Audi and the Porsche.
Let's have a quick look, see if I can spot one of the Audis, see where it is. Just having a bit of a look around what is out there on the grid. I mean, I think we've got a little bit of everything out there. Got some Bentleys, got some Ferraris, Porsches, McLarens. Obviously, the BMW's making an appearance now. There's at least one Aston Martin, car number 95. Where are we looking now? He is in 17th place. Let's bring that one up. He says, clicking on it, there we go. So there's at least one Aston Martin. I mean, that used to be the car of choice, really. Oh, very deep. Cut that corner completely. Bit of a mistake there on that lap. But I mean, ever since the bop change and obviously the new release of cars, quite a changed grid, to be honest. I think, let's say, last season there was a lot of McLarens and a lot of Aston Martins. They were the sort of the safe bets to go for, realistically. But everything has changed. So who knows at this point?
Yeah, massively, and just interesting thing, keeping an eye on the battle for pole position. Korekis was purple in Sector 1, purple in Sector 3, but had a pretty poor middle sector, and basically lost all of his advantage. Only finished 400ths off the effort from Rosier that he's put in so far. So he'll be looking to try to match, I think, his previous middle sector, which was just a low 32, but that would have been good enough to get him into provisional pole. So Korekis showing good pace already again, but just hasn't quite been able to hook it up all through one lap, and that's one of the most frustrating aspects sometimes of qualifying. You can sometimes have a car that's perfect in every single corner, but if it's just on the edge or it's a track you're not quite so comfortable with, putting it together corner after corner and hooking up the lap all the way through and bring it to the line, particularly if it's a dangerous track with track limits, and invalidating the lap, that's where it can get very difficult and frustrating as a driver to be on the verge of something fantastic, or throw it all away and start dangerously in midfield where you might be rather looking to challenge for top 5. So it's always a difficult process with qualifying.
I mean, qualifying somewhere I've always really struggled with. I mean, not a quick driver by any means. Out of us two, John, you are definitely the far superior driver. But I mean, it's just, yeah, putting it together, having a short period of time, the track's busy, and, you know, obviously, but this, luckily, Paul Ricard, quite a nicely spaced out wide track. Like you said, plenty of space to go past each other, but especially on smaller circuits, tight circuits, something like Laguna Seca, where there's not a massive amount of space, if you've got someone behind you, even though you're on a flyer, you feel that pressure, like, oh, I'm holding up whoever's behind me, and obviously if they're gaining on you at every corner, it can be a lot of pressure. So yeah, like you said, just concentrating enough to hold it all together. Oh, and there's a mistake there from Termanen. He was 0.3 up on his time, but he's now dropped it by 0.1, so he now dropped a fair bit of time there. Sadly went a bit too deep. Just seeing if anyone else is on a good flying one. Meerveld, 0.1 up, keeps flicking in and out. Nico Earl also, he's on a decent lap at the moment, so might see a position change for that. Massoum also 0.2 up, so we'll jump on board with him.
Yeah, Massoum has done the purple sector in Sector 2 now, actually, so showing that the Ferrari's got pretty good pace up that back straight, and there's also been a pretty good effort from, is it Oliars? I'm going to go with Oliars, I'm not entirely sure though.
I think it would be a soft J, so yeah, Oliars, I think sounds about right.
Yeah, he's put in a good effort there. Purple in Sector 1, and again, just a few hundredths away from Razir. As Garbus then puts in a good effort as well. So the margins between these drivers in the top 5 again, less than a tenth. So this might be tier 2, but it does not mean that the field is any less competitive by any means.
We are possibly about to see quite a big improvement. According to the timing board, I think we'll keep an eye on pole. It's a 53.2 at the moment. I think we're about to see an improvement. 53.1. So stretching his lead out even further. That's
really nice.
That's a blisteringly fast car, that is. He's really, really at home inside that McLaren. I'm just having a little look down the field. Anyone that hasn't qualified yet, sometimes you'd be surprised. You get the odd person that hasn't put in a lap. Matt Whitburn. I don't think.
Marlon Andrade.
Oh no, Whitburn has
looking to set up. I think he's looking to set up what will be a last-ditch effort for a qualifying lap, and Marlon has shown some really quite competitive pace at times. He's in the Ferrari this season. I think he's used to driving the McLarens. I think a couple of seasons ago he was even in the 650S as opposed to the 720S, which is what normally people are using. But he switched to the Ferrari for this season, and he's currently in 6th. But he could throw potentially a bit of a spanner in the works if he hooks up a lap in the way that I'm sure he knows that he can do it. And I say that he's just pulled off to the side of the road, so I'm assuming that that's going to be the last attempt from him then. So no higher than P6 for Marlon in the end.
I mean, but still, a 53.450. That is blisteringly quick. That's still very, very fast. I mean, there's nothing to sniff at whatsoever. I'm trying to see Caracas 0.1 up. He's on the back straight currently. A lot of guys in the pits at this point. Salonen is also 0.1 up on his time. Who else we got? Who is this? Makovkin. He was up and he's just disappeared. So I'm presuming he's just completed his lap. So where has he now appeared to on the list? Up to 13th place. A bit of improvement there.
Yeah, so good effort from him. I was just going to say that so far, Rosier is just fantastically not purple in a single sector, but is just consistently fast throughout the entire lap. And it's just consistently fast enough to be able to put together a really good time, as Masoom and Oliars have actually tied for P2 at the moment, but Oliar's got that lap in earlier, so he'll start on the front row unless anyone else can pip him to the post. Koreka doesn't look like he's going to be able to do anything. He did go purple in the final sector, but unless there's any surprises elsewhere,
he has
might
pulled
be
over.
pole position sorted.
Yeah, it looks like he's given up on that lap. Who got? Got Nico Earl still out there lapping. Got that Audi. Fair play inside the top 10. Like we said, it was a car that might struggle here a bit this evening.
Very impressive effort from him.
Yeah, that's mega. And he is slightly down on his best, but obviously still thinks he can make up some time, possibly in the final sector. So interesting to see. Connor White currently running in 17th. But he is up on his time, so let's see what he does. Currently 17th. Up into 13th. Big old jump. I say 0.1, and he's jumped from 17th to 13th. So really shows how incredibly competitive these guys are. Who else have we got here? We have Daniluk. He is out there as well. He's in Sector 3, actually coming up on the penultimate turn now. So it'll be interesting to see what he can do in the white. Yeah, it's the white McLaren with the blue wheels. As I do apologise if some of the liveries aren't working. Assetto Corsa decided they do a big update on how the liveries work. Oh, he's disconnected back to the pits. Nope, he is still here. He's fine. I don't know what happened then, but if you were watching on the stream, it looked like he just drove straight into a wall. But so that's it.
While that was going on, Gregory in the number 17 had a huge moment through turn 8 and managed to hold on to it, but obviously invalidate his lap in the process. Yeah, a few surprises, good and bad, with the order. I think the likes of Dennis Latz might be a bit disappointed. P16 with that, and there's a fellow previous Tier 1 compatriot in 15th Toro Grossa. So they might be a little bit disappointed with that. And, you know, front runners from last season, likes of Pitchick in that Bentley, maybe not quite as strong as it once was, down in 29th. So a really interesting and varied order for this one.
Yeah, I mean, everyone all over the place. Again, it's the opening race of the season, so it's always a bit of a mix. Obviously, everybody up to this point has just been hot lapping, so they don't know where their car is strong against the competition. So their setups may be more hot lap sort of orientated, and it may be that after this race they're actually going to go, okay, I'm too aggressive on my tyres, or I'm running too much fuel. I need to, when I do my tyres stop, I need to do a bit of a splash and dash and go. It's as you well know, there is a lot of tactics that go into this. It's not just a case of show up and put in a really fast lap. It's consistently putting in decent laps and showing decent racecraft for an entire hour. So let's have a quick run through the grid. Let's choose a slightly better camera. Always a bit difficult to see cars when they're on the grid. But on pole we have Rosier. So he's new to us this season. Well, he's new to Tier 2. Then Oliars, also in second place. He is also running one of the McLarens. Masoom, who, look at his ping is reasonably high, so that might be something to keep an eye out on lap 1. He's got quite a decent red bar of ping there, so that's a bit of a worry.
Yeah,
but
I think
hopefully
joining from India, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
There, so that might explain that. There usually is a screening process during registration, but it might just be that the connection's a bit poorer today. But yes, hopefully that'll be noted by the other drivers to hopefully avoid any further contact if possible.
I mean, it did look, he was still coming through reasonably clear and smooth during qualifying when I was watching him, so fingers crossed there's no issues there, but obviously we will keep a little eye on that just in case. So Grantis Caracas down in 4th position, obviously rising star in Tier 2 last season, had a bit of bad luck, but very, very fast man. He is one to watch. He is not afraid to go toe-to-toe and wing mirror to wing mirror in the battles. 5th position is Garbus in, yet again, it's one of the other, another McLaren. It's a very mid-engined led field this time round.
Very much so.
Andrade, sorry, in the 742 Ferrari. down in 6th place. Nico Ull in 7th place. Fan favourite Mirveld, he is in 8th position. Salonon down in 9th, and rounding out the top 10 is Ben Keys, and he is in another one of the Ferraris. So actually, surprisingly, this is our first BMW on the grid. Down in 11th is oh God, I haven't read that name before. Kamenev. So he is number 54, and that is currently our leading BMW. And then we have Terminen in the Lexus. Really good to see a Lexus still out here and running in 12th position. So that's a really decent spot to put that car in. Connor Wright, who is... Oh, sorry. Yeah, it would be Wright. Why can't I speak today? I do apologise. It's the first opener of the season. My voice box isn't quite where it was before.
We'll get it right after the final race.
Yeah, we'll get it eventually, won't we? Connor Wright in 13th position. Then we have McCovin. God, I can't speak. I cannot speak. I'm going to do the top 15, and I'll let you do the second 15 of them. He is in 14th position in our leading Bentley, car number 57. Do you want to carry on and read through the rest of the list for me?
Yep, so after Toro Grossa in 15th, we've got Dennis Latz. So there's our 2 Tier 1 drivers from last season as they start to pull away now for the formation lap. We've got Daniel Pashka, who I've seen be very competitive in the AOR Endurance Cup at times. And he drove the Audi in that series, in the McLaren for this one, so it'll be interesting to see how he does with that. Struch, then behind him, followed by Cowley, Climbs, Steinhauser from last season. I think he did win at least one race and was generally quite a competitive driver in the Aston, so it'll be interesting to see what he can do in the BMW today. We've then got Daniluk, I'm not entirely sure, Matt Whitburn, Ruoff, Polyakov, Yan Gang, who I think is a familiar name. I can't remember what.
Yeah, I think he was a Tier 2 driver last season. I can't remember what he was driving, but
yeah, I'm not entirely sure, but he's in the Porsche for this season nonetheless. Then we've got Mame Yazabowski in Lamborghini, so I think maybe potentially the only Lamborghini we've got on the field.
Yeah, I believe it is.
So good to at least see one representing the other Italian car manufacturer. Pitchik, obviously, well regarded in Tier 2 last season for being a front runner. I think even running the same paint, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, that Bentley not doing quite so well, but joined with another Bentley just behind him of Gosselin, and then Jay Fang, followed by Shooter 80, Gregory Gosmacher. We've got a lot of front engine cars lining up at the back of this grid, which potentially suggests a little bit of the way that the dynamics of this track are affecting some of these cars.
Yes, it's definitely looking like a mid-engined favoured circuit.
Very much so. I think parts of the final sector and that first sector where you really do need that agility in the car. The front engine cars probably have a bit more consistency and stability through corners like turn 8, which can be quite helpful because that's a very high commitment corner, and you don't want a car that feels sketchy through there. But yeah, for outright raw pace, maybe not quite lending themselves quite so well to this circuit. But I'm sure that certainly the BMWs, if nothing else, will have their chance elsewhere. Then behind Matt York, we've got Vioris, I think, and then Totev, and then rounding out the grid, another returning Tier 2 driver of Muscat in another Bentley. And I've noticed that Robert Vioris seems to have a 30-second time penalty already attached to his name, and I'm not entirely sure where that would have come from, because I don't believe that we don't have any live stewards in Tier 2, and I'm not sure where a penalty would have previously carried over from.
I'm not entirely sure on that one.
You can get penalties for jumping the start, being out of your grid position, but I'm not sure about getting one before before we've even started the race. So I'm sure he'll be slightly displeased about that. Maybe it's something he can appeal, but that might be added to his pit stop, so that might be unavoidable.
Yeah, I think it's going to be one of those things of, sadly, he's got it right there, coming around the final turn, everyone bunching up, racking up towards the lights. I mean, as we saw yesterday, I feel quite bad for the guys right at the back. They do pretty much just come around the turn as the lights go green, and speaking of such, lights are green, and it's a really good start by Razier. Can he hold on to it? He has the inside line going down into turn 1. Everyone looking quite respectful. Oh, we've got Nico Ull coming up the middle. And the drive-through
for Nico already.
Oh, he was out of position.
Oh,
oh God, that's not gone well.
Razier skipping turn 2 then. He's giving up the advantage. Does he give up the position? He does. He's given up more than just the one if he's not careful, but just about holds on to P2, but already getting very stacked up.
Yeah, it is already really, really tight. Let's jump back slightly. We'll just wait for the timing screen to sort itself out. It always has a complete wobble on.
Oh, I see.
Oh, there's some yellow flags further back in the field. Who was that? We'll try and go back to it. I think everyone's back out there.
Terminal's down there. Trying to find who else is. Yang Gang seemingly was involved in that, and Salmon as well. So I'm not entirely sure how that took place, but yeah. So already losing kind of 3 drivers off the back of the pack already.
Bit of a shame. I mean, but that's not too bad. It was obviously it's still, like we said, it's lap 1. There's a lot of stacking going on. I mean, Olias is probably rubbing his hands, and a big slide from Reyes. How? Oh, he's gone off wide. That's another load of positions lost. Obviously,
was for turn 8 as well.
Oh dear. It's just obviously that setup not gathering heat in the tyres quick enough. We obviously didn't manage to gather enough during the warm-up lap, and that has pretty much gifted first position straight away to Olias, and he is absolutely flying away from everyone. Who have we got there? Why hasn't that updated itself? It's still showing Reyes in 2nd place on my timing screen.
I'm still having some trouble with the time board as well, so hopefully that will sort itself out once they come across the line. Koreka's already putting Masoom under pressure. I don't think he's going to look to do anything down towards turn 1. He thinks about it, but
not quite close enough.
But that McLaren we saw in Tier 1 yesterday had a really good amount of straight line speed. I don't think the Ferrari is much of a slouch either, but Masoom just a bit too far away from Olias, I think, to get a fantastic toe. So on this next back straight, Korekas, who's looking very racy, keen to make up for what he might regard as a little bit of a poor qualifying, might be looking to try to make some sort of move on the run towards turn 8, carrying the speed now through 7. Got to be careful not to run too wide on the exit there. Nicely in line. Does he start to close in with Masoom already trying to break it? Be careful.
Looking over the rear wing of Masoom, looking back, he's doing some gentle weaving, trying to break the toe. To be fair though, that McLaren not able to close the gap. He's just staying exactly where he is, unless he's going to be super brave on the brakes. Maybe he's just starting to close in on him now, getting towards the top of 6th gear. Can he make a dive? There was a thought. It was definitely a thought that he was going to try. Just not able to get close enough, and fair play to him. He really sort of held on to that position well.
Off at turn 8. Lexus off at turn 8. I think that might be Cowley, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure. But I saw that there were some drivers going side by side on the run up towards turn 8, and then Alexis went flying off. I'm not 100% sure.
He is currently down in 14th, still going.
I've got him down in 23rd now.
Oh, okay. Maybe he's jumped down even further. It might be a case of, again, that the timing screen is just taking its sweet time. So apologies if we do call them out ever so slightly wrong. Just notice, Climbs, oh, for a moment, set the fastest lap. That's disappeared now. Someone else has just beaten him to it.
Seems to have gone to
Reyes.
Razier.
Yeah, Razier, sorry. He has pulled out the fastest lap there. So that's a decent one. What was that one? That was a 54.4. So that was basically their first proper flying lap, wasn't it, really? So that's not bad. And obviously, everyone's still having a little bit of a squabble and a battle. Trying to see who is looking like they're really close. Let's jump back to 7th position. Wait, is this correct? I don't know. No, 8th position, sorry. So this is Bakovic, Kamenev and Torregosa. All three of these guys really close together, especially through that through that first sector. They were absolutely all over each other. So it'll be interesting to see what happens here. Whether we're going to see a move towards the end of the back straight.
Just also keeping an eye on Karekas again. He might... No, it doesn't look like he's going to do anything quite yet. But he's certainly looking very racy on Masum as well.
Well, it looks like the Bentley on that back straight can hold its own against the BMWs quite well. It's certainly held the pace. That was really good to see. Nice to see that the BMWs weren't just able to monster over it. So the big old girl is still...
Oh, Lexus off again in the background. Again, he's not happy with turn 8.
So let's have a look here. Let's jump back up a little bit with the leaders. Like you said, Caracas still fighting up the back of Masum. Having a quick look at the YouTube chat as well. Anywhere I can see the penalty list from yesterday. I'll get back to you on that one. I'm not sure if it's publicly available or not. You may know slightly better than me on that one, if I'm honest. I don't think it's publicly available, but I'm sure...
It's not something that I think ends up being made too public, no. So I think potentially once penalties have been organised and sorted, that will be reflected in the race results, which I believe are publicly accessible on the Apex Online website. But other than that, I don't think there's a specific list that is put together. But the outcomes should be apparent once everything has been sorted by the stewards.
And there's a lot of love in here for Masum, so really good to see that fans of Masum are here. Nice to see you. He's really putting in an absolutely fantastic effort. He is, well, he's the only Ferrari inside the top 6, so everything else is McLaren, so he's obviously showing that Ferrari really is still a dominant car. He's doing a really good job.
He's closing in a lot on Olyars, actually. I don't know if Olyars had a particularly bad exit. I didn't see him do anything too wrong, but all of a sudden, from that gap that he was opening up, Masum Masum's got a huge tank slapper on.
Big slide.
Turn 9 just about manages to catch it. He's now got to worry about Karekas, and those tyres will be struggling. So all of these drivers are quite clearly pushing, but Olyars just seemingly lost a great deal of time on that back straight. I'm not sure if he's... I don't know, maybe he's realised that he's having some limitations with fuel. Drivers can change tyres in these races, but unless I'm mistaken, they cannot refuel. So unless he's made a miscalculation with regards to his the fuel that he's put in at the beginning of the race, he wouldn't be looking particularly to try to do any fuel saving this early on. But he did seem to lose a tremendous amount of time there.
I mean, lap time-wise, it still wasn't a bad lap. That still was a 54.6, so not horrific. But again, you look, the guys behind, they were 54.5s.
Brazil's looking for a move on Karekas. Looking towards go the outside on the way towards turn 3. Karekas defends the inside line. Not going to be able to do anything through 4. So he's probably going to look to try to line up a slipstream onto this back straight again. It is one of the main overtaking opportunities, but it's a dangerous one at that, because turn 8, as we've already seen Cowley be the victim of that corner many times. I haven't seen... Oh, is there... and I think that was just a camera perspective. I thought someone was round in Sector 1. But see, it's going to be McLaren versus McLaren, up this back straight. Razir does look like he's closing in slowly but surely. Karekas is heavily defending that inside line. He's going to send Razir to the outside now, as they've also got Garbus going to be closing in with that slipstream behind. Going side by side, they've got to be really careful not to make contact through here if they can, giving each other room. Razir going wide on the exit, going through the bollards on the outside. Still side by side into 9, going door to door. Garbus is looking at this, seeing if he can find an opportunity through, and Karekas very nicely managing to squeeze Razir out there on the exit and hold on to that position as they look to round off laps. A really nice side by side fight between those guys there.
That was a really beautiful bit of driving from those guys. They're very respectful. I mean, obviously, Karekas held onto that inside line, and like you said, I honestly thought Garbus was just going to outrun him and take him. Let's see if Caracas can get a slightly better final turn. I think that's where he lost a lot of his time last lap, because he was quite up the back of Razier at one point, and then obviously dropped back. Oh, sorry, he was at the back of Masoom and then dropped right back. So be interesting to see if he can sort of hold it together this lap, and whether he can hold off Razier, because he is coming from. And I just noticed Dennis Latz has put in the fastest lap of the race so far. So what was that time? Let's see if we can grab Latz. That was a 54.3.
Oh, someone cutting the... I think that was Toro Grosso just cutting turn 2 in the background. I think he might have actually been battling with Latz at the time. That's obviously Latz's ears were burning there, and something was going on the track there. But yeah, Toro Grosso went straight through the first couple of corners, so I didn't quite see how that came about. But all getting very busy on the outskirts of the top 10 here.
Yeah, so that Dennis Latz is really on the back of him. Be interesting to see if the Ferrari can outstretch the BMW on the back straight. It does look like he's in the slip. Can he make it a move? Looking like Toro Grosso is holding on. Sorry, Toro Grosso is holding on to that inside line. Going to force the Ferrari around the outside. But I think he might be far enough ahead. Yeah, he does. He gets it done. He gets past the back straight. So the Ferrari really showing its legs there, but he goes a little bit deep. That was close. That was a close one in the end. So he's slightly further back as well. I think it was Paschke nearly having an incident as well with one of the other BMWs. It was either of Wright or Kamenev. Those two, well, all three of them getting really close together. So the pack of cars really hasn't split up at all. Going to jump back on with the leader at Masoom, really taking the battle now to the front. So Oliars,
yeah, really hounding him.
Yeah, so I think over the next couple of laps, unless Oliars can find some new pace from somewhere, so that last lap was a 154.8 from Oliars, and Masoom was a 154.4. So that's a massive, massive difference. So 0.4 of a second between them.
Even bigger difference was with Razier, did a 55.2 on that last lap. He was actually challenging Caracas up towards turn 8 again, and Caracas managed to hold it from the exit of turn 8 immediately on that one. But yeah, Razier, I don't know if there was contact later on or a mistake from him through turn 9 or something like that, but he did struggle through there. Also, a bit earlier on, unfortunately, Cowley was victim of turn 8 once more, so he clearly does not have a car that he is too happy with. And also Totev down in 33rd got a drive-through penalty, which I can only assume was for track limits. But looking back at the front, Masoom, huge straight line speed advantage in that Ferrari, is going to look to go to the inside. I'm surprised Oliars didn't try to defend it. And is he going to be able to hold that as they go through turn 8? Oliars is fighting him back. It's really close on the exit, side by side still, as they head towards turn 9. McLaren, there's contact.
Oh, that's a rub! Oh, Masoom sideways! He's sideways. He managed to avoid any other contact, but goodness gracious, that was not what we wanted to see.
Actually has a huge amount of oversteer on the rejoin as well.
Yeah, those that blue paint is not as grippy as you think it's going to be. It looks like it's just tarmac, but it is not rubbered up the same as the track. I think he tried to get back on the power, and devastating for Masoom. I mean, wasn't the biggest contact. Probably more of a racing incident than anything else, I would presume, from our view. But that's a real kicker for him, as he is now dropped right back. I think he is running in 6th position now, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, he's back in 6th, and he now has Makovink. Sorry, why do I just cannot get my words out?
I believe it's Makovkin.
That's the word. I don't know. I mean, if for anyone listening, I do apologise. I am horrendously dyslexic, so if I pronounce someone's name wrong, do feel free to tell me in the chat, because I genuinely look at it and I think that is how I pronounce it, and then I say it and something else completely different comes out of my face. So obviously, yeah, Masoom is obviously no longer on the back of Oliars. So Caracas, is he going to be able to outstretch away from Razier and take the battle to him? It'd be interesting to see. When we're looking at the last lap, oh yeah, well, obviously there was the contact, wasn't there? So quite a big difference, 56 1.2 was Oliar's last lap, so really, really off the pace, and I wonder if he did pick up any sort of aero damage or anything during that little bit of contact. But it didn't look that big of a sort of a touch, did it? It wasn't much, but obviously with all these identical McLarens, the slightest disadvantage and a bit of oversteer there, I think, through that turn. He got a bit deep and a bit sideways. Caracas taking advantage and really closing the door. And Caracas is not a man to hold back. If there's a gap, he is going to go for it. I mean, respectful driver, very sort of, you know, got a lot of racecraft, but he is certainly not going to take it easy. He will go and try and get in front.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, Anish Rafais could go for a straight
yeah,
away.
going on the inside. He gets it done.
Oliar's got to be careful of Razier behind, but Caracas not holding anything back there. And now he's going to try to outrun him towards turn 1. He will compromise his exit just a bit. So is there anything Oliar's can do towards turn 1? I don't think there is, unless he's very brave under brakes. No, so he's going to look to be trying to get out of position back, probably up the back straight, but that was an extremely opportunistic move there. But already gapping Oliar's just a bit, and if anything, Razier's going to be on the case for trying to snatch P2 as well. Having to force Oliar's to go defensive there through 3, run his gearbox through 4. Do we see another opportunistic move? But no, Oliar's defends the inside through 5. That will compromise this exit towards 6, and that has an effect all the way from here now up to 7, and then all the way up to 8. You carry all of that speed basically flat on the throttle from halfway through 7 onwards. So is he going to have much to fight with? Caracas on the inside of the track, I think he's trying to help. Sort of maybe the toe of Oliar's a bit there. Ooh. So then these guys go side by side through 8, because that will likely help Caracas get a bit more of a gap, and they are indeed going to be going side by side on the run towards 8. We saw Caracas and Razier make this work. What's it going to be like Razier and Oliar's? Looks like Razier got that one done very nicely, even before 9, although Oliar's made a bit of a mistake on the blue stuff again, and he's going to lose the position to Garber. So Oliar's, I'm not sure this is entirely from aero damage, the reason as to why he's suddenly dropping back quite as much. I think if anything, he's struggling on tyres, maybe just having a bit too much of an aggressive setup, that's taking too much out of the tyres too early on in this stint, and it just is it's sending him down the order. And now he's only got one car between him and Masoom, and I'm sure that when they if they do end up coming back together on track and battling, that there's certainly going to be some interesting approaches from either of those drivers. Probably not too happy on either side of how that contact happened earlier.
No, I mean, like I said, from what we could see, it didn't look malicious from anybody. It was just a simple case of, 2 into 1 doesn't go. But like we said, we've seen a couple of other guys do it cleanly, haven't they? I mean, I'm like you were saying with Oliar's dropping back. It looked like he was dropping back. He was really dominant, like lap 1 and 2, wasn't he? He was really up there. And then even before his contact with Masoom, he just seemed to be dropping back a fair old way. Obviously, something maybe, like you said, not right with the car. Maybe he's running more fuel than everyone else possibly, and now the tyres are up to temperature. It's not doing him any favours. But Caracas absolutely tearing away from everybody at the moment. Like absolutely, well, 1.3 seconds he's pulled that gap out to. So that's a huge gap he's pulled away, and did a 1:54.5 last lap. So it'll be interesting to see if he can improve on that.
Meerveld attacking Oliar's now, so it could be another position lost for who has been a race leader for a long time, going side by side through 8 again. Very, very close. Meerveld going for the cutback, maybe? No, looks to back off as they head towards turn 9. But yeah, Oliar's really struggling now with pace, and just sort of coming back to that instant between him and Masoom. I think it was Masoom maybe getting a little bit deep under brakes heading in towards 9, and then just sort of came together, and the contact model in the ACC is a little bit over the top sometimes with the way that these small collisions end up being amplified into much bigger contact. So yeah, very minor contact being amplified in something a lot more significant. But one way or another, whether it's down to tyres, whether it's a combination of that and the damage that he suffered during that contact, Oliar's now, from previously leading the race quite comfortably, really struggling for pace.
I don't understand why. I mean, like we said, it's got to be a setup issue. Masoom is coming back strong, so obviously he didn't get too much damage, and obviously his tyres are still holding it up together reasonably well. As I just under 20 minutes of the race done, so nearly halfway there essentially. So his tyres haven't got to go too far, but you know, has it done too much damage? Not going to stay on board with Masoom too long, because it does, when we're trying to watch him, whether there's that little bit of a connection, he isn't quite the smoothest car to watch. He seems to be fine if he's on screen with other cars, but when I'm locked onto him specifically, it's a little bit odd. Just having a quick look, and obviously that number 57 Bentley of McAvin. Yeah, my brain is broken. I give up. McAvin, that is right. I said it right for once. He's still holding his own pretty well, down in 7th at the moment. He's got a decent sort of gap behind him. Has got a fair gap in front of him. Slow car there. What was that?
I think that might be a back marker, but amongst all of that, Masoom almost actually lost it on the exit of turn 8 there. I think was trying to kind of set up a cutback, on Meerveld in front of him. And almost lost it, so it does look like that Ferrari, despite the contact, has still got very good pace in it, but is definitely being pushed to the extreme, and maybe even a little bit over the limits as well at the moment. So it's getting a little bit dicey. I also noticed we've had some drivers do their first pit stops. Not too many, although who was that just came in from the lead sort of pack? That was Masoom. So speaking of the man himself, looking to get that damage repaired probably, and see if he can get himself in a bit of clean air, because it does look like he's got good pace. And those drivers in front of him being held up a bit with some of the other battles going on, as we're seeing a lot more drivers pile into the pit lane now. So it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out after this first round of pit stops. And another driver that I wanted to give a quick mention to was number 68 of Nico Juch, who obviously we saw had a really surprisingly good qualifying, as in the meantime Mame has acquired himself a drive-through penalty, so I think that might be for corner cutting, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's very easy to do here, isn't it? The corner cutting and picking up, it's just, and well, yeah, like we said, because you can straight line the corners almost. You know, it's very easy to think to yourself, oh, I'm a bit too bunched up, I'll just, I'll straight line this one and give the position back. But if you don't slow down enough to give the position back, or you gain any kind of advantage, the game is very quick to hammer down on you. I know they've sort of tightened up on a lot of bits and pieces like that, I believe. I'm trying to see who is our leading pitted car, which is Toro Grosso, actually, or Toro Grosso, sorry. He is our leading pitted car at the moment. He's down in 21st, so he's obviously going to climb the order as people pit, but I wouldn't expect to see him fly up the order.
Yeah, just also a quick mention on back markers. See, it's getting very complicated with some of the guys who've already pitted. Saw the likes of Marlon Andrade trying to get through the back markers, and Matt York not getting out of the way quite as quickly as I think Marlon would have been hoping for. They are in their own respective races, but back markers do have to be careful not to impede some of these other drivers, and whilst Matt might have some extra pace right now as he's on those fresh tyres, do still need to respect some of the rules. I think that there were also some other drivers that were not quite following blue flag procedure as well, but unfortunately he was the only one that I was able to spot in the middle of it. Not to name and shame too much, but yes, it can get very complicated during this phase of the race, and that's something that Masoom has to maybe be a bit worried about, because if he comes out amongst some traffic, that could really affect his race quite heavily, so we'll have to see how that plays out.
Well, I think he's going to be coming out in 21st position, unless the timing screen wants to update itself. That's currently where I'm seeing him, so there's a lot of the grid still in front of him. Like we said, obviously they will need to pit, so it's gonna change at some point, but he's got a lot of traffic in front of him at the moment. Obviously you mentioned Matt York a moment ago. Interesting to see him in a different car this season. He's in the Bentley rather than his Oh God, what was it? It was the Aston Martin last season. I say normally that's the car I kind of just associate with him is the Aston Martin. So good to see him in a different car, and obviously interesting to see him in the Bentley. As we were discussing offline earlier on, the Bentley's sort of becoming one of those cars that is in the sort of like in real world racing is almost becoming discontinued at this point. Lots of teams moving away from it as it's no longer sort of as supported by Bentley as it was previously. Oh, just a quick look at the front. It's looking like Rosier is starting to close in on the back of Caracas.
Yeah, that was a very poor lap from Caracas there. I mean, over the previous lap, Meerveld was actually the fastest of the top 4, but on that last lap, yeah, Caracas really lost a decent chunk of pace. He had a good margin during most of the lap there, and then just through Sector 3 just seemed to lose an awful lot of it. So Rosier now, having lost the lead through making mistakes earlier on in the race, has now really started to get that car hooked up where he wants it, and is right on the gearbox of Caracas, who's running very wide as they head through 6 and now onto 7. And now onto that back straight, and we've seen Rosier make moves already. We've seen these two go side by side already.
I'm on the rear wing of him. Oh yeah, I'm on the rear wing of Caracas, but yeah, he's gone from view. He's already made it done. Can he do it though? I don't think he's quite made the pass. Just yes. Caracas jumping in behind him. Is he going to try and get a late toe and then dive up the inside here? He looks. Decides against it, decides not to go for that one. That's it, but do not underestimate Caracas. He will go for that dive if he needs to. Obviously, he's a very, very competitive racer. But here we go. Yeah, Rosier probably very glad to be back at the pointy end of the field again, though, after obviously, like we said, lap 1, a little bit of contact, and he ended up having to cut a corner, decided to slow down to a... I just having a quick look in the group chat. I think we're having some sound issues at some point. Is everyone's volumes the same? Do let us know. And I can adjust volumes slightly differently. It always comes out slightly differently on the streams. Regarding the liveries, all the liveries are installed, but ACC changed how liveries work. Caracas into the pits. They've changed how they work, and so all teams were notified they would have to modify their liveries and resend them. So some people have, and some people haven't, or some people have given them to us and they're not quite working. So some liveries should be up and working. If they're not, it's simply because the teams haven't put them in. Obviously, if you're not making your own liveries, and you're using sort of a designer that does them all for you, there is the possibility that they just haven't had a chance to get them swapped over to the new style yet. So yes, bit limited on the on the visible liveries, but I assure you all the liveries that are available to me and submitted by the drivers are installed and working. So if they're not, if your favourite livery's not there, it is simply just because we don't have access to it, I'm afraid.
Just want to chime in because Masoom set the fastest lap of the race, was doing 53s last time round, and he's going to be coming past the pit lane exit now. So we'll see where the likes of Caracas line up with him. So he's past Meerveld, past Olyars, and is only now sort of about a second away from Caracas by the looks of it. So he has made that undercut, even with, I presume, fixing the damage that he suffered during that earlier contact. He has made that work very nicely, and we've seen that he's already shown some excellent race pace. So this could be working out quite nicely for him to get him back into the fight. But we did see yesterday in Tier 1 that if you're too aggressive with that undercut, that you do start to suffer really badly with tyre wear at the latter stages of the race. We saw Buffby, for example, go for sort of almost a 10 to 15 minute undercut, I believe, and although he briefly got himself right onto the back of the lead pair, by the end of it dropped to around I think 5th place in the end, as he lost pace as the stint went on. So have to be careful not to go too aggressive with it, but Masoom might have judged it quite nicely there, potentially to bring himself back into contention with those front runners.
Yeah, he's definitely catching. Well, I say catching or hanging on to the back of Caracas. Obviously, he's on his outlap, but doing a really good effort to immediately sort of get that pace up and going. I mean, obviously the tyres aren't quite up to temperature. They're only sort of pit temperature, and they always get a little bit chilly just when you're on your way out, just because you haven't had a chance to get them really hot and going. So Caracas doing a really good job, and he is our current leading pitted car. Obviously, Razir actually is the leading car, but has yet to pit.
Yeah,
everyone else in front of him has...
out that stint.
He is still stretching away. And I wonder if it's actually going to play into his favour, probably a little bit. Only because a lot of these guys have pitted before halfway through the race. So these guys are going to have to make this second set of tyres go significantly further than the first set. Quite a long old stint, the second half. I mean, it's when you're going to be mentally more tired as well, more likely to make a mistake. So you're going to be on more worn tyres, on a more worn brain and body. It can be a bit of a recipe for disaster, but I mean, obviously, these guys are way quicker than me, and I'm sure they have worked out everything, every possible advantage they can work with. I'm sure. So it'd be interesting to see.
Goes into the strategic aspects of these races, but I have to say I am slightly concerned for Razir. Because he's lapping in the very low 55s at the moment, and Masoom, we'll see what Caracas' first kind of flying lap is after his pit stop. But Caracas, Masoom has been in the 53s on a couple of occasions. Although on the back straight we've got Makovkin and Oliaz, I think, going side by side on the way towards turn 8. Oliaz looks like he might hold on to that position unless Makovkin can do anything into 9, looking to try maybe do something around the outside. Oliaz a bit deep into 9, doesn't look like he can do anything there, shuts the door on him as they head towards turn 10 now. But yes, the battle's still raging on through the field. We've also got Meerveld and Garbers quite close to one another. But yeah, I am a bit concerned about Razir's first place, because although he's lapping very consistently, and he will, without doubt, be in a good position later on in the race, as Caracas now does the fastest lap.
53.8 this time round.
That's a huge difference. It's consistently at least a second a lap. And those guys, when Razir came into the, when Caracas came into the pits, there was a very small margin between him and Razir. And if this goes on too long, it won't just be the fact that Caracas will get the undercut on Razir, but Masoom will as well. And although Masoom's tyres may die out a bit earlier later on in the race, we've seen that Ferrari's got good straight line speed, got good pace overall, and it could take Razir a quite a reasonable amount of time to get back past him to then try to challenge Caracas for the lead. So he's got to be a bit careful here about how long he stretches out this stint for, because it could make it dicey even if he has got the pace, and he's in now just boxed.
I will say he was already 0.7 of a second down on that lap before he dove into the pits. So he was already really starting to lose some time. I wonder if his tyres really dived off towards the end, which, I mean, also is a bit worrying, because he's got to go that distance again pretty much for the second half. So going to be interesting to see actually how far he can go. On board with Caracas, he's in sector 3 now, and I hate to say it, I think he's going to take the position away from Razir. I can't see.
I think Masoom might as well.
Yeah, and where's Meerveld? How far back is Meerveld? Meerveld, sector 3. In fact, there's just a whole row of them coming through. We'll stay with Caracas because he's the first man that could possibly do it. Razir's not even at his pit box yet. He's still rolling. And that's it. And Caracas onto the pit straight. Razir's still moving. I don't think he's even pitted yet. Oh no, he's on the exit. He's exiting the pit right now, so this is going to be into turn 1. Is he? Yeah, he's just going to lose. Caracas passed him. Masoom passed him as well. Yes. Meerveld, where's he coming from? And he's passed him as well.
He's lost to 5th.
Yeah, lost a massive amount of places. That gamble did not go as planned. I mean, maybe towards the end of the session he'll be able to on slightly fresher tyres than the other guys. It's only sort of 10, maybe 5 minutes difference in those tyres, but will he be able to regain the pace? But I think that gamble has not worked for him. Caracas pulling away from Masoom still. Very similar times though. It was a last lap Caracas a 1:53.940, and then Masum a 1:53.942. So there was nothing between those guys. There was absolutely no pace difference. That is absolutely insane. That's photo finish stuff. That's like quantum measurement to try and find that tiny little bit of difference in pace. So, I mean, but these two could almost benefit from not battling because they've got just over 4 seconds back from Masum to Meerveld. So
sorry to cut you off. A battle going up towards turn 8 as Andrade has just got past Toro Grosso. And I was looking around those guys, and yeah, Toro Grosso just looks like he's dropping back a little bit. 55's last lap, and he has pitted, so does seem to be struggling for pace. But one driver that also stood out to me was Dennis Latz, 53.7 on the last lap. So that was 0.2 of a second faster than our leaders. I didn't quite see when Latz pitted, and it was clearly an invalidated lap of sorts because it hasn't appeared as his best, it's just appeared as his last, but seemingly has some quite strong pace. He's going to cross the line now, so we'll see what he does there. So low 54 for him, and that's still faster than both of our leaders. So in actual fact, at the moment, he is one of the fastest cars on track. It'll be interesting to see how Razir ends up coming back, because this will be his first flying lap on the fresh tyres. So these tyres will be coming up to temperature, coming up to pressure, but if he wants any hope of regaining the ground towards the lead, he really needs to get past Garbus and Meerveld right now, and that could be quite difficult because they're all in McLarens. There's a decent amount of slipstream going on between Meerveld and Garbus, and it's not going to be fantastically straightforward for him to try to make a move, even with that much fresher rubber. So, yeah, Razir, despite having really good pace, it's certainly been a roller coaster of a race for him so far, and he might have just made his life a lot more difficult.
Just having a little bit look further down the pack. Who do we have here? I'm on board with, well, looking over Roof at the moment. He was incredibly close to Goslin. Does appear that he's starting to break that gap away ever so slightly. Just always very interesting, obviously, watching all the lead guys constantly, but trying to show some of the other guys a little bit further down the field as well. Try and give everyone a little bit of time. In fact, let's have a quick scroll through and just see how everyone's getting on. J Gang, I'm unable to select him, so I think him and Cowley may have left the race session at this point. Oh, big move up the inside. Oh, end of the main straight. Can he make it work? Not quite. Goslin in that Bentley trying to go up the inside of Roof. Not quite able to. And then Go tries it there. Can he do it? He's on the inside line. He's going to be forced to the outside coming into Sector 3. Oh, there's contact. Just about hold it together, and a little bit of a rub again there. Didn't look overly malicious, a little bit of just rubbing, but that BMW of Gobsmacker now able to make a move. Are we thinking Gobsmacker is birth name or a gamer tag? Because I'm imagining Shooter 80 is probably a gamer tag. So
yes, no Shooter 80, and I think we've also got Zorax here as well. I don't think he's on the grid today. But yes, I'm not entirely sure on that front. Also, just whilst that carnage was going on, Razir has done exactly what I said he would need to do. He's made it past Garbus, and now he might even be looking to set up a move on Meerveld as the run up towards turn 8. So those fresh tyres now kicking in, and he needs to get this done now, because that'll be 20 minutes, give or take, left on the clock.
On the rear wing of Meerveld, sorry, got to quickly give you an update. Rear wing, it's going to happen. That's it, he's coming past. He is storming past. So Razir absolutely hammered up the inside there as well.
Oh, Meerveld trying to hold it outside, but he sacrifices that line in the end. So yeah, good move from Razir then. Oh, Garbus had to take avoiding action by the looks of it. I think just got a bit caught out by how much Meerveld slowed on the run towards turn 9 and went very wide. So he's going to have Olyars on his gearbox potentially in just a moment. But yeah, so Razir then making the moves that he has to if he wants any chance of winning this race. You've got Korekka still lapping low 54s. Masum was a high 53 that last lap, so we'll see what these guys are doing in just a second. So low 54 again, a bit of a slower one there from Masum that time. So those tyres may already be starting to potentially die out just a little bit each lap, and if Razier can convert that pace, even with that move, did his best lap of the race on a 53.8. So this will probably be the first time he gets a proper clear run with those tyres up to temperature, with those tyres very fresh, to see what sort of lap time he can put together. Fastest lap of the race still from Korekka, which was just a slightly faster 0.8. I have seen an illegitimate 0.7 from somebody. I think that was Marlon or Dennis a few laps ago. But yeah, Razier now, this is the point where he needs to really push and get his head down if he wants any chance of closing that gap up to the front two.
He is definitely already pulling away from Mirvard though, isn't he? Nearly a second between them at this point, so 0.8. So he is really pushing forward. So has the gamble worked for him? Is he going to have enough time? About 20 minutes left of this race.
I think he's going to have something like 11 laps to try to do this. It'd be 11 or 12 laps. I think I think 12 more laps might be a bit of a push. So 11 laps, if he's able to maintain sort of something like a half a second advantage, I think that's the sort of advantage he's going to have to be able to maintain in order to then have enough time to then to make an overtake on not just one but two cars. But who knows there's someone off.
There's someone off at the end of the pitch main straight. I think it was Ull. I think it was Nico Ull. Yes, end of the back straight. He's on the outside of the turn. I was just jumping on with a Pitchick and just saw in the background suddenly a red Audi. He's rejoining. Looks like he's got a lot of front end damage though. Not sure what happened, whether that was on the brakes. I didn't see any contact. He was at the back of the shot though, so there may have been some contact with someone possibly trying to shut the door before that sort of final turn. Sorry, end of the straight turn. I do apologise, not final turn. And now he does seem to be struggling to get that car to turn in as he's coming through Sector 3. So, yeah, not sure what happened there. While that was going on, it was Yaroboski, I believe, went up the inside of Ostrich. So, I'm sure that was going on. Those two guys very close together, or they were just a moment ago very close together. Yaroboski are only Lamborghini on the circuit this season, actually.
Yeah, it's not a car that's... it's a car that seems to have been used a bit more frequently in recent times. I think it's overall still not one of the strongest on average across circuits, but it has, I think, benefited ever so slightly from some of the recent updates. I think we've also just had another driver retire. I think... I think maybe Salman, who I just saw come up as going into the pits, and I now can't find him.
Yeah, I think he's retired.
So I'm not sure what happened to him. He may have just been a bit frustrated.
I think also Matt Whitburn is... I can no longer select Whitburn, so yeah, it looks like Whitburn, Salonen, and obviously, as we said earlier on, Cowley and Gang, they have all retired from the race. I mean, either retired or disconnected. Obviously, some of them we didn't witness happening. So, just having a quick look at some times. What have we got here? Masoon outpacing Caracas that last lap, only by 0.1.
Razier is on it. He did the fastest lap of the race in the previous lap of a 53.6, and then was only 600ths off that on the last lap. And crucially for him, as it stands right now, Masum is just a little faster than Korekka, and that is exactly what Razier will be hoping for, because he wants those two guys to fight, lose themselves time on the track, and then that will help bring Razier back into contention for that front pack. And I said he would need an advantage of about half a second. Well, as it stands, he's doing more than that. He's doing about 6 tenths, sort of 5.5, 6 tenths of a second on Masum. And definitely 6 tenths over Korekka. So it could be coming his way. There's still just over a quarter of this race to go, and we've seen more dramatic things happen in shorter periods of time. So it's definitely not over yet.
No, it's going to be a run to the line. Just drop back to the battle for 17th place, which again is Pichik on the back of Ostrauch. How you pronounced it earlier? And I think
I think I went for Ostrauch, but I'm
Ostrauch. That does sound
I'm
probably
not
much better.
Confident in that one, to be honest. I'm also noticing that Nico Yule is in the pits, so I have a feeling he might be retiring.
Quite possibly.
That car. Yeah, that drive-through at the very beginning of the race. I think for starting out of position, it was a pretty solid effort to try to recover as best as he could from that. But with that moment that he had earlier on, he is definitely struggling a bit. And just checking in again on the times at the front, 54.5 for Korekis last lap, 53.7 for Rozier, so 0.8 of a second now, the advantage. So it is definitely far from over for that. And also the battle for P4 actually is on again. Garbus had to recover a bit of ground from when he made that mistake earlier. Just seemed to get a bit caught out by Meerveld when Rozier was making his way through those two cars, and Garbus now in a position potentially as he looks to set up quite a nice exit through turn 6. Just looks like he's able to hold even in the dirty air, not as cataclysmic as it is in something like Formula 1, but it is still quite effective. Is well in the slipstream now of Meerveld. Similar cars again. Doesn't look like he's got quite the level of overspeed that Rozier has had in his car, but it might just be enough as they head up towards turn 8.
Quite possibly.
Going to go to the inside. Garbus is going for the inside. He's going to force his way onto that line as they head side by side up towards turn 8. Who is going to come out on top? Meerveld giving some room on the outside, going wide on the exit, and Garbus is going to get a position down unless he makes a mistake through turn 9, but I just don't think that Meerveld has the pace at this stage in the race to fight that too hard. So good move there from Garbus to not only recover that ground, but really nice racing through such a difficult corner to take the fight there to Meerveld and get that 4th place. So excellent driving from those two.
Massoum within 0.1 now, so he's within touching distance at this point. So on the pit straight currently, not close enough to make a move into turn 1, but this...
Rozier going to 2nd.
Oh my good lord, he is absolutely giving it everything, isn't he? He is determined to get back that position. I mean, and fair play to him. If he can do it, it's going to be an absolute gargantuan effort. Someone I keep jumping back to again is Pichik. Just having a quick look at the chat as well. Why did he just give up the inside? Who are we on about? Which racer? Sorry,
I imagine that might be for Meerveld.
I presume
with
so.
With Garbus, and I think really it can be for any number of reasons. Turn 8 for a start is a corner where you require a lot of commitment. If Meerveld was struggling on tyres, he would obviously rather stay in the race and finish in 5th than effectively dropping what might be well outside the top 10 or even DNFing if he did have an off there.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes just a bit better for your race overall. If he thinks that maybe he's going to come under pressure from Oligars later on, seeing the time being, he can get some slipstream off Garbus, try to tow him along a bit and maybe hold on to 5th rather than dropping down to 6th. I'm seeing a comment saying that he didn't fight it. I think he did try to defend the inside, but Garbus was just making even more of an inside line than Meerveld, I think, was expecting, so close towards the entry to turn 8. So,
I mean, it's like you say, Meerveld might have been hoping that Garbus was going to have to sort of check up a little bit more to hold on to that tight inside line, but he just didn't. He just kept coming, and I mean, I don't want to say it might have caught Meerveld off guard a little bit, but he really was coming up great guns behind him, and obviously, like we said, he had a decent overlap. Meerveld had been defending down the back straight on the inside, and obviously then eventually had to move out of the racing line, obviously, like you said, not knowing how well his tyres were going to take, trying to take a much tighter line. And Garbus just took advantage, just dived through there. I mean, if you can do it and you're feeling comfortable in the car, then, you know, absolutely fair play to him for being able to make that move. Like we said, quite late in the race, just over 10 minutes left, so these tyres are all going to be pretty worn out and tired by this point. So if you're able to stick your car up the inside, fair play. Oh, Pitchick has got the move done. He is up into 17th place. Oh, I think he had his hazards on then, so I don't know what happened. He is in front. So, well, there are people asking for the battle for the lead. So it's close, but not quite close enough to sort of... Oh, actually, Massoum going to the outside. I think, not this lap, but next lap, I think we could really maybe see this closing up. So, possibly...
Yeah, Razier will be loving seeing that, because if those two start battling, Razier is he didn't gain quite so much that last lap, only about 6/10, but that's still definitely a hefty margin. These guys have got about 5 laps to go of this race, and if he wants a shot at taking the race win and regaining that lead, he really needs to be on the back of these guys as soon as possible. So if these guys start battling and losing a bit of time to one another, that'll definitely bring him into the fight. And you know, we saw with Meerveld, if it was due to lack of confidence with his tyres to not battle quite so hard, that's exactly where Razier will be able to maybe take a bit more of a risk, a bit more of a gamble on the car sticking underneath him. As he again takes another half a second out of these two, and I think that on this occasion Massoum is definitely going to be in a position to be challenging for the race lead. It must be said as well, actually, that whilst Razier has made a good comeback to close up to these guys, Massoum, after having that contact earlier on in the race, you know, he was in this position a second earlier when Oliars, you know, what seems like an age ago, was leading the race for so long, and then he dropped down to 6th, and after repairing the damage, pitting quite a lot earlier than anyone else, he is now looking to challenge for the lead, and I think that is going to happen.
Comes Massoum coming past
the outside.
Has he made it work?
Momentum. I don't.
Yes!
He's got the speed advantage,
He's
and
done
Correcas
it.
had to slide him behind. He has no choice but to let that Ferrari go. Razier would have been hoping that battle would have gone on just a little bit longer, but yeah, Massoum carrying a great deal of speed in that Ferrari, and now these guys, they were on pretty similar pace, so it'd be interesting to see if Massoum starts to run away at all. And that might mean that Caracas is under pressure from Razier very shortly. But if Massoum wants to take this race win, he's going to want to get as far away from Caracas as possible, so that Razier doesn't have too much of a chance. But that bright orange McLaren is definitely getting bigger in the rearview mirrors of these guys.
I just cannot believe how quickly like I said, the number 2 McLaren, the bright orange of Razier, how quickly he's closed up on these guys. It is insane, and they weren't really battling until the last lap or two. Realistically, they haven't even battled that much. Caracas getting really on the back of Massoum, though. I mean, sometimes it's a bit easier to follow than it is to lead. So interesting to see if Caracas... Oh, Caracas trying to get around the outside.
Razier's here.
Yeah.
He's no rhyme intended, but he is right where he needs to be with these final few laps to go. Because yeah, Massoum hasn't been quite able to run away in the way that he would have wanted to have done, and now if anything he might be vulnerable to not just Caracas, but if Razier can get a double toe off the pair of them, that could really slingshot him past. And we've seen that orange McLaren has really good straight line speed up here. It might be difficult for him to make a move on the outside. It depends who the Ferrari decides to give the toe to. It's looking like it's a bit even between the pair of them, which
Yeah,
is
he's
intentional. Rosier still looking towards the outside. We've seen these two go side by side through turn 8 before. Who's going to give?
What's up?
It's going to be really close, but Rosier keeping his foot in it on the outside, and Karekas has to back out of it.
Yeah.
And Rosier now up into P2. Karekas just does not have the grip right now to fight that, and now what he'll be wanting to do is he said, okay, I can't stop you. You go after the Ferrari, and I'll see if I can stick with you, and then try to regain that position later on. And Rosier now, with about 3 laps to go, might just have enough of a tyre advantage to reel that Ferrari in. No additional slipstream now for that Ferrari to stop him from getting past, and he might just about be able to make this work. But that was a fantastic battle for P2.
Yeah, I mean that back straight. I didn't think he'd get the move done. He was obviously gaining on the back of Caracas, obviously in the slipstream. As soon as he came out to go round, it just hit that wall of air, and then that was it. He just couldn't get any further. But fair play to him, just managed to outbrake Caracas. I mean, Caracas, as we said before, very good racecraft. He did give enough room, didn't push Rosier all the way out to the outside, but Rosier was out there anyway. He was giving it.
Mistake from Massoum. He's sorry to cut you off there.
No.
He ran over those curves a bit deeper than he would have liked, and that's just another couple of tenths that just allows Rosier to get that extra. As he goes very. Rosier actually made a big mistake there onto the back straight. That wouldn't have helped him at all.
Well, I mean, hopefully he hasn't got.
Under the time pressure, yeah, and fingers crossed he's not too much on the borderline of track warnings. But yeah, Massoum made a little bit of a mistake there, and despite that battle last lap between Rosier and Caracas, with Massoum basically in kind of clear air for the majority of the lap, the times between him and Rosier were almost identical. So I think Rosier has gained a little bit on this lap despite that mistake, and it really could go down to the last lap here. Because Rosier is pushing, and it does look like Massoum is struggling. He did do that earlier pit stop, and we wondered if it might start to compromise him in the latter stages of the stint. And even though he is oh so close to the end, that orange McLaren is closing every single corner, particularly in Sector 3. You're relying a lot more on the mechanical grip of the tyres. He
goes up the inside! Oh, that's contact!
Oh, and Massoum holds on to P1. I think Caracas is actually going to potentially get back. He's into a slipstream with Rosier. Rosier might even have to defend the inside line towards one unless Caracas decides to let him go. I think Caracas might actually let him go because he knows that Rosier is the faster car. And there was a lock-up there from Massoum. We don't tend to see too many lock-ups here in these cars because of the ABS, but in that heavy braking zone, we're saying about tyres giving up and relying on them more in the slow speed corners, and yeah, absolutely that Ferrari just would not get stopped. But yeah, still very much this battle going on.
I think there's about 10 minutes difference in these tyres between Massoum and Rosier. I think Rosier's tyres are the best part of 10 minutes newer, which is a massive difference. It's a huge difference towards the end of this race. You sort of, like we said, it's the difference between 40 minutes and 30 minutes is ginormous, especially on the circuit. But like you said, mechanical grip, the tyres are under massive load, especially through Sector 3, and so, lots of fast, long corners. They don't get a chance to disperse any of that heat. So again, he's closed right up on the back of here, hasn't he? So it's going to be interesting to see if Rosier can do anything into this final the final sector and the last 2 minutes of the race now. So possibly 2 laps left.
I think it's going to go down to 1 lap.
I think it's going to be
in mid-50s at the moment, and when they cross the line, there's going to be less than that on the clock. Also, in the meantime, Mirvell somehow has got back past Garbus, which I'm very surprised about. Garbus looks like he had the pace earlier on, but I don't know if he made a mistake or if the tyre drop-off was hit him really hard. But looking back at the front, Rosier again, almost identical position to where he was last time, right on the gearbox of Massoum, and this is going to go down to the final lap. This will be the final lap of this race, and Rosier right now right on the gearbox of that Ferrari. Is he going to do anything towards turn 1? Masoom thinks he might. Looks to try to come off the inside. Rosier thinks about it, trying to put him under pressure. Fake a move. Looks like he did catch out Masoom a little bit. He ran a bit wide at turn 1, but nothing too much he can do here. Rosier needs to be patient. He needs to just get his lines right through these next few corners. He's got the grip and he's got mega straight line speed. He just needs to set up a really good exit onto that back straight, and that might be enough for him to challenge towards turn 8.
And a quick one.
Like he's got that pace.
I think Caracas is playing a little bit of a tactical game, because he looked through sector 1 like he was way off the back, but then he's obviously, he looks like he's just lining himself up for a slightly different line. Right, I'm going to jump on the rear wing of Masoom, and we'll be able to get a good idea of whether or not
he's trying to break that toe. He is desperate to hold on to that P1, but I don't know if he's going to be able to do it.
He is closing.
Really good straight line speed.
But there's definitely being closed on. Can he make a move? I mean, if Reyes goes for it here up the inside, that would be insane. Not quite able to. Caracas looks like he's really given it all as well. A little bit unsettled. So the battle for the podium, taking it all the way to the end. It's going to be close. It's going to be really close. I mean, I'm wondering if Caracas has dropped back ever so slightly, hoping for a mistake between these two, because he could possibly get past both of them if there's contact and they're both sliding sideways.
Masoom wide. That might give the cutback for Rosier.
Going up the inside, possibly. Can he hold on to it around the outside? Again, there might be contact.
Inside for 13, no.
No, not quite able to. But again, goes up the inside, massive dive, gets it done, and cuts the Novos off Masoom. Oh, he got it done. Caracas going for the switchback. Is he going to try and take him as well? Yes, Caracas going for second place. And it looks like he's going to have the run to the line. Yeah, quite possibly. Big flash from Caracas. He's just managed to get the cutback.
What a fantastic
Goodness gracious. I mean, amazing driving by all of them. But that second end, that second part of the race, the pace from Reyes was absolutely ridiculous. Need to drop back a little bit, see if there's any other battles coming across the line. Who else have we got that's close? I think the battle for 17th is still raging on with Pitchick. Yes, Pitchick behind the back of Steinhauser. Actually, I think Steinhauser's been moving forward as opposed to Pitchick coming up behind him. Those two battling it to the line as well. So that's 16th and 17th. My goodness. That was unbelievably intense towards the end of that race.
That was fantastic. Rosier, both Rosier and Masoom drove fantastic races. I think, arguably either one of those drivers were in a class of their own today. They both suffered from incidents during the race. Rosier kind of caused his own problems by losing the lead earlier on, and then Masoom had that contact with Oliaz. So the pair of them have had to really try to come back and fight for the win, and to have it all come together on the final lap of the race. And you were saying that Caracas was just trying to find an opportunity, and he timed it to perfection with that cutback on Masoom. Masoom obviously entirely focused on doing everything he could to recover that P1 spot, and he will be gutted not just to lose out on first place with just a couple of corners to go, but to lose out to second as well, right at the death of it. But yeah, that will be it. But what a fantastic drive from everybody there, and generally, I think Tier 1 obviously showed some pretty brilliant racing and pace yesterday, but I think Tier 2 showcased some fantastic wheel-to-wheel battling, and particularly side-by-side through turn 8 on multiple occasions. And we never really saw it get too severe between drivers. Everyone left each other space, everyone managed to make it through there cleanly. We only had contact on a very small handful of occasions, and when we did, it was fairly minor. So just fantastic standard of driving in every single way from these guys today, and a brilliant finish at the end there to really round it off.
I don't think we could have asked for a better round opener, could we, really? I mean, like we said, the guys, they kept it lovely and clean. Great to see. It just, yeah, unbelievable effort for them. Right, so I imagine we're going to probably have some guys stacking up in the ready for interview box in a moment. So it really would be great if we could have our winners in with us if they feel like joining.
Hopefully, it would be fantastic to hear from any of the top three, really, because that was such a back and forth race for every one of them. Razier with the comeback, Karekis trying to be consistent throughout, and Masoom with the comeback of his own, and they were all within half a second when they crossed the line. So everyone had a different story to tell from that race. Yeah, that was absolutely brilliant stuff all the way to the final lap there.
That was fantastic. Yeah, like we said, absolutely fantastic. Right, I'm just going to drop us into a slightly different screen, just so then we haven't got all the race noise in the background if anyone's going to join us. So just hold tight with us for 2 moments while we have a little swap. There we go. That should be it. We should be all in here. You should still be here as well, John.
I am indeed.
Fantastic. And just seeing if anyone's going to join us in the interview box. I think everyone's either still celebrating or a bit nervous, which is understandable. But we'll hang on for just a little bit longer. I mean, who do you think your driver of the day was on that one?
I think I've got to give it to Razier. I mean, there are. For me, it's a tight battle there between Razier and Masoom for driver of the day. Masoom did lose out a little bit at the end, but the resilience and the determination that both of them showed during the race to come back from their various mishaps or shortcomings in the race was fantastic, and their pace was exceptional as well. And Karekis, I don't want to downplay him too much. He drove a fantastic race, but he was kind of just always around that sort of fight, or he found himself in a position where he was in that fight. Whereas Razier and Masoom really had to fight their way back towards it. But I think Razier, particularly to gamble when he had the race lead, to go longer into the race and just to keep on pushing and hoping that he would get that opportunity at the end, and to do it so late on the final lap, and to have so many clean and respectful fights as well. I think I have to give driver of the day to Razier. That was a phenomenal drive from him.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've got to agree with you on that one. I'm going to quickly pull, actually, Razier into the commentary box now. He's in the interview box waiting for us, so we're going to pull him in, and we can let him know the good news that not only did he get pole, but he also got driver of the day for us, so let's drag him in. Razier, can you hear us?
Hello, yes.
Fantastic race there. It really all came together in that final, well, sort of 20-minute stint. It just seemed like you had unbelievable pace compared to everyone else. We wondered if your slightly later pit strategy was going to sort of be your undoing, but as it turns out, you played it absolutely to perfection. Congratulations on the pole on the opener of Season 9. It was a really, really strong effort. And also, you've got driver of the day from us as well. Like we said, just brought the fight the whole time. How did it go for you? How did you feel it went? Obviously, it went well, but did it feel good?
Yes, thank you. At first lap was pretty bad. I made a mistake turn 1, and I just drift. I don't remember which turn, but it was very bad. I was P4, I think. And after that, I tried to come back to the P1. And I overtake, it was Caracas, I think. And he go to the pit. I was like, bon, I'm gonna to wait like 5 laps, and I hope I will have fresher tires for the end. And it pay. It was a bit a bit close, but it pay. The Ferrari was very strong in the top speed, and even with the slipstream, I was nowhere their top speed. So it was very difficult, and he made a mistake on the second last turn, I think. And I go to the inside, and I play very aggressive to stay in front.
I mean, the moves you made, they all looked really well put together. Like you said, you sort of took advantage of Masum's mistake there towards the end. I think we worked out that his tyres had been on the car for nearly 10 minutes longer than yours, because he pitted very, very early, and obviously yourself pitted very, very late. So it really did show that the later pit stop on that tyre choice was definitely the way to go. I mean, an absolutely tactical genius move on yourself. As I think when we were looking at your lap times, we could see that they would, while you were out, keeping out and not pitting, we were watching your lap times come down, and we were, all of us, sort of like nail-bitingly worried that you were possibly undoing all your hard work. Obviously, like we said, you did great in qualifying, and obviously there was that mistake on turn 1. Did you say that it was just a case that you just made a mistake, or was there contact there? From the angle we had, we weren't sure if there was contact or whether it was just a case of sort of overcooked it into turn 1.
Just a break too late, so that's it.
Okay, fair enough. But no, it was a fantastic effort. John, any words?
Well, I mean, just I have to say, from my point of view, because I was keeping a very close eye on your lap times. You know, there were times where you were a second faster than Karekis and Masum, and I was saying about the sort of advantage you were going to need to keep up, and I was very doubtful of your strategy, and I was very worried for you that it had gone wrong, especially when Meerveld and Garbers got past you as well. And when you were in that mindset of knowing you were going to have to push, clearly you had great car underneath you, great pace and confidence with it. But what was your mindset when you were looking to try to go for those really high commitment moves side by side many times through turn 8s and trying to pick your battles, pick your moments, things like that? What was it like inside the cockpit?
Honestly, after the pit stop, I saw I was P5. I was like, okay, it's impossible. But I overtake the two position P3 and P4 very quickly, and was okay, let's go, push, and the last 15 minutes, they start to fight, so it was good for me, and I was focused and try to not make a mistake. I saw my lap time was like 7/10 faster than her lap time, yes. And yes, just push, and try to make my best.
Yeah, we could see that, and we could see how hard you were pushing. And in the I think it was the penultimate lap, there was that mistake from Masum where I think he locked up into the final corner, and then you both had a little bit. Just a little bit of contact on the exit, just sort of taking different lines, and then almost lost the position to Karekis behind you on the run towards turn 1. But it looked like he sort of backed off a bit. Probably beneficial to him in the end, is the way you managed to get P2. But how relieved were you when you didn't put too much of a fight up to you on that run towards turn 1, so that you could absolutely gun it on the final lap and put everything into attacking Masum?
Honestly, I think he was just waiting for us to crash together. and yes, Masum made a mistake last corner, and Carakas didn't back up, he just pushed me. And yes, I think he's just waiting for the mistake from both of us.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what it looked like from the outside, and clearly at the end it paid off for him, as then he was able to snatch P2 from Masum as well. But yeah, absolutely phenomenal drive. I was concerned that you were potentially throwing your race lead away, and you certainly did make it easier for yourself. You had a lot of work to do in those final 25 minutes, but yeah, it was an absolutely phenomenal effort. So yeah, congratulations on not just the pole, not just the fastest lap, but a dramatic comeback and brilliant win there for the first round of this season.
Well, fantastic. Thank you ever so much for joining us. I think we are going to call it a day now. It doesn't look like anyone else was brave enough to come and join us. But thank you ever so much for joining us in the commentary box. Any words before we end the interview?
Well, congrats to all the driver. It was very fun. And good luck for the next round.
I say good luck to yourself as well. And hopefully we'll see
Yes,
you up on the sharp end of the grid again. So fingers crossed. Thank you ever so much for joining us.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Well, I think that is pretty much us done for this evening. Thank you ever so much for joining me, John. It has been an absolutely fantastic season opener. I think we well and truly showed that Tier 2 is just as fast and possibly a little bit cleaner than Tier 1. So, I mean, saying that, it'll probably be an absolute barbaric mess next round now that I've said it. But I think it was a really nice opening to the season. I hope everyone at home has enjoyed watching this evening. Hopefully we'll get some more of the liveries working by next time round. Like I said, it was just a case of there's been some changes since last season as to how all the liveries work, and some teams just haven't been able to get those changes done in time. So fingers crossed everything will be ironed out even better next time. But any final words, John?
Well, I think just to follow up on your point about the racing in Tier 2, I think everybody on the grid tonight, whether it was the battle for the front and outside the top 10 or even further down the field, it really was a fantastic showcase from everybody about what hard but fair racing is about, and what really AOR is about in terms of league racing. And yes, if this is just a taste of things to come, I think we are going to be in for a very exciting and dramatic season ahead, and I can't wait to see what we end up getting up to next week.
Ooh, and speaking of next week, let's have a quick look at the calendar as it has completely slipped my mind. Where are we next week? We are at Nürburgring. Oh, we'll save your lovely story of Nürburgring for next week, shall we? Because John's got a lovely story from last season that he can remind you all of.
I have a wonderful story, but yes, we'll leave everybody waiting for that one, and I shall enlighten the wider audience of my great experience at Nürburgring.
Fantastic. Well, thank you ever so much for joining us, and obviously you can meet us again here next week for Tier 2 racing on Tuesday nights, qualifying starting from 7:30. Stream starts a little bit earlier, just so we're all about and ready to rock and roll. But thank you ever so much, guys, and we'll see you next week.
Good night, everybody.